Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me for centuries.
This is the Cameron Parker Show, brought to you by Spreaker, where we discuss everything from around the local professional sports scene in Colorado, such as the Denver Broncos.
Chris Harris comes out. I don't know if he was on the drive, but he said, I knew 15 seconds into that game that I should have been on T.Y. Hilton. If players are coming out and saying that, it falls again on the coaching staff.
Not to mention insiders from around your local sports scene. Ryan Spilborgs, former outfielder for your Colorado Rockies.
It's not going to be the 25 guys that leave spring training that are going to be the only guys the entire season. I mean, you need depth. You need guys that are going to be in your minor leagues that you may not expect.
Ryan Edwards.
You know, when you're talking about an offensive line, it's about the five best guys, right? And you're talking about the five best guys gelling. There hasn't been a lot of time for that.
It's showtime. Are you ready? Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is another edition, another episode, another installment of the Cameron Parker Show. It is a new time, a new day, or should I say same time, new day. We are broadcasting on a Friday, on a baseball Friday, should I say. And we will see if as the postseason certainly is starting to creep back in. The Nationals are playing the Chicago Cubbies, but in a disappointing end, the Colorado Rockies are out of the playoffs. So a lot to get to as far as the reaction to the Rockies' loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Everybody can cry if you guys are Denver Broncos fans because it is the bye week. It is the early bye week. Does the early bye week mess with the chemistry and the timing as far as an early bye week? So a lot to get to. And, well, in the bye week, who are your biggest surprises and who are your disappointments at this point in the season? Because it is an early part of the season, you just never know. You just never know. As far as who could be a potential disappointment, who could be a potential surprise, we will be discussing that, amongst others, with the news that Derek Carr might be playing on Sunday. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the guy who the Denver Broncos broke, meaning his back, well, apparently, he just might be good to go. Or at least he's, lobbying to start. So we're going to be discussing a bunch of other things along those lines as well. So it will be a fun-filled sports adventure with you, and I want to tell you guys that because it is the football season, I'm going to add a new little wrinkle into the Cameron Parker Show, and that is called the Fantasy Football Focus segment. I had it part of my Cameron Parker Show before, and I'm going to bring it back here in the NFL season, giving you guys maybe some pointers, maybe potential starts, maybe potential sits, giving you guys maybe the best matchups for the weekend to set that lineup and to set your guys' lineup for the week. Well, we are entering maybe the point where you maybe just not care about your fantasy football team right now, whether you're 1-3, 0-4, like me in one of the leagues that I'm in, or you may have scratched and clawed your way back, and as you are now 2-2. So a lot to talk about as far as that is concerned with the fantasy football side of things. Who should you start? Who should you sit? I will talk about that here on the show, and that will be an abbreviated segment because, well, more importantly, I'm here to talk sports with you guys. However, I will dedicate with you guys a chance to talk some fantasy football and a chance to make an impact on your guys' roster. This is the Cam and Parker Show, and as always, we have a song by Sayer Benninger.
Let the heavens roar and all that's within me. Can't stop singing now. Revival is coming. There's no other name. To you be the glory. Every victory you have delivered me. Don't ever stop. Come on and sing it now. Lift up a shout of praise. With all my heart, I will bless your name. Give it all to you. You're all I need. From the grip of pain, you have rescued me. Sweep me off my feet. I will dance for you. Everlasting love, oh, it surrounds me. Vindicating grace, my God, you're amazing. Don't ever stop, come on and sing it now. Lift up a shout of praise. With all my heart, I will bless your name. Give it all to you. You're all I need. From the grip of pain, you have rescued me. You sweep me off my feet. I will dance for you. With all my heart, I will bless your name. Give it all to you. You're all I need. From the grip of pain, you have rescued me. You sweep me off my feet. I will dance for you. With all my heart, I will bless your name. Give it all to you. You're all I need. From the grip of pain, you have rescued me. Sweep me off my feet. I will dance for you. With all my heart, I will bless your name. Give it all to you. You're all I need. From the grip of pain, you have rescued me. Sweep me off my feet. I will dance for you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and it is the Colorado Rockies postseason. Well, it did not turn out the way that we all hoped, and during the break, I'm pretty sure that speaking of Sayer Benninger, I'm pretty sure he is jumping for joy at the opportunity that the Chicago Cubs have broken up Steven Strasburg's no-hitter, and the Cubs have taken a 1-0 advantage over the Washington Nationals. And by the way, I do want to wish a very happy birthday to his wife, Bethany Benninger. It is her birthday today. Would like to wish her a very happy birthday. She's a very caring mother for two adorable children, and Sayer is blessed to have her. We are talking the Colorado Rockies postseason. The Colorado Rockies obviously were ousted. It wasn't exactly the outcome that we all had wanted as far as maybe the Rockies certainly were looking for. However, there comes a point in time, and this is really the point that I've been trying to make all year with the Rockies. There comes a point in time where you have to appreciate the team that it was this season. And I realize that World Series is and should be your number one goal. And I realized that. But at the end of the day, the Colorado Rockies were 87-75. And arguably maybe the best team they had ever had. And it certainly enters the conversation of the 2007 team and the 1995 team as well. And my point is, as far as the Colorado Rockies is concerned, is that you have to appreciate the team that was this season. And again, what I mean by that is the Colorado Rockies did certain things. They separated themselves from a lot of ghosts of their past. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by separating themselves by the ghost of their past? What do I mean by that? By the way, update: the Chicago Cubs have now taken a 2-0 lead off an at-bat by Anthony Rizzo. So the heart of the lineup by the Chicago Cubs is doing damage against Strasburg. So what I mean by that is over time the Colorado Rockies have had this stigma and this image that they could never produce starting pitching. And they could never produce capable starting pitching for a full season. They could never produce starting rotation help, really, and for that matter, they could never have anybody come to Coors Field and be a starting pitcher for the team. And that's why the Rockies would experiment. They would go after guys like Jamie Moyer, Mike Hampton, Denny Nagel, Kyle Kendricks, Jason Marquis, just to name a few. That's why the Rockies have to go after guys like this, because one, Mike Hampton and Denny Nagel are the exception, but they have to go after veteran arms like that as far as a third, fourth tier starting pitcher. Because no front of the line, at least a number 2 and number 1 starter on the market, will ever want to come to Colorado. And that was the issue with Colorado. However, because of the ghosts that they've now been facing this year, they now have benefited from beefing up their farm system. And they've been beefing up their farm system with a lot of capable pitching prospects. A lot of capable pitching prospects that has now maybe solidified a rotation for the next 4 or 5 years. And I'm talking about these pitchers like Chad Bettis and Antonio Senzatella and Kyle Freeland and Jeff Hoffman and John Gray. Tyler Anderson sprinkled in there as well. And I think that people forget about the end of October that Tyler Anderson had. He was coming up. I believe he was coming back from the Tyler Anderson was coming back off the disabled list, and he posted, if I'm not mistaken, in the last 28 days before it ended and before going into their playoff, he posted a 1.19 ERA. Guys, he posted a 1.19 ERA. That's insane. That's Clayton Kershaw-esque numbers. And for a rotation and for a staff that needs coherent pitching, they need players and pitchers like that to step up to the plate, or should I say step up to the mound and dominate with 6 to 7 innings. And that's what, while it wasn't exactly the outcome that you had to have been prepared for that, is that sometimes in the postseason and in a postseason war, or in a one game winner-take-all playoff, you have to have at least a good stretched out pen of starters and of pitchers that are going to at least give you quality innings. And this is why John Gray, certainly he had to go 6 2/3 innings. That was my biggest goal. But the Rockies have proven over this stretch, as far as moving into the postseason, they had a very quality rotation to the point where, with the emphasis on the quality. And the reason why is because they were putting together quality starts. And if you're wondering what is a quality start is when you go 6+ innings with allowing 3 runs or less. And the Colorado Rockies were doing that. Now, another aspect as far as some of the ghosts that they faced with this rotation was having the capability to pitch at home. Kyle Freeland basically played exactly the way that I thought he would as far as a pitcher. He's from Colorado. He understands how to pitch in the altitude. He had, I believe it was close to a 3-point-something ERA at Coors Field, and that will get the job done in a lot of instances. And there are numerous situations where you have to say to yourself, is it potentially a scenario where the Rockies do have to go after a starting pitcher? Despite the performance of John Gray during the season, if I put it on Twitter the point when it happened, and that is that if this game proved anything, is that the Rockies have to have a front of the line starter, a future ace or a actual potential ace come forth. And this was my biggest worry, whether it was an 11-8 ball game, it was my biggest worry going up against Greinke. Is will a starting pitcher that is capable enough, and is he fearless? And this is why I certainly felt like maybe German Marquez might have been an option, certainly for that wild card game. However, I get it. John Gray was your best pitcher maybe nearly the last month of the season next to Tyler Anderson. And so you want to sprinkle in some numbers along those lines. I think he had a 2.77 ERA at Chase Field. This season. So you have to look at the grand scheme of things with the Rockies, and as far as the season, they played exceptionally well. And in fact, for as much as we dog on the Rockies offense in a certain stretch, in the biggest game of their lives, the offense came alive. And it came alive in a situation and a game where really all hope was lost. The Rockies were down 6-0 to Zach Greinke. And the Rockies climbed back, tallied 4 runs, started to chip away, but unfortunately their biggest weakness still became their biggest weakness, and that was their bullpen. And their bullpen is still a ghost of their past. And this is why, if you are looking forward as an off-season and into the winter meetings, the Colorado Rockies have to be setting their sights on another maybe back end of the bullpen type pitcher. You don't know what the future might hold for Pat Neshek. Will he come back as a Colorado Rocky? Will Greg Holland come back as another Rocky? We don't know. a lot of question marks now are starting to face with this bullpen, and because there's still going to be potential change in this pen. Mike Dunn is going to be here. Jake McGee will still be here, I believe. Adam Ottavino was one of the wild cards. He lost certainly a pitch or so, and a lot of maybe some of the command issues that he had with his slider and fastball on certain occasions. It's important for the Rockies to solidify their bullpen in this offseason by making dynamic moves. And dynamic moves that will further stamp the team as a contender. Because I'm going to tell you right now, and if they're, the Dodgers, they made the postseason, the Diamondbacks, they made the postseason, but like I've been saying before in the history of all the Camera Parker shows that I've been doing, if there is one team that should scare the crap out of the Rockies or the Dodgers, ignore the fact that they had maybe the worst record in baseball this year, but the Rockies have to be weary of the San Francisco Giants in every single year. While the Rockies have their number, certainly in years past, you cannot count on the fact that the San Francisco Giants will be going 67 and 95 or something along those lines. You cannot count on the San Francisco Giants having a down year come next year. And this is why, and especially with the Dodgers also, and especially with the Diamondbacks coming up and also going to the postseason, you have to now game plan potentially and build a bullpen that is going to neutralize and stop your biggest threats. And that is the Arizona Diamondbacks lineup. It is the Los Angeles Dodgers potential potent lineup. And it's also maybe not being as dominant heavy as far as maybe a lineup. Having a lot of versatility in a lineup. Maybe when you're facing the starting rotation of the Dodgers. So there are a lot of question marks still, and one answer that has to be answered and is a surefire answer is that the Rockies have to re-sign Jonathan Lucroy. And when they traded for him in this trade deadline, it was an audition. It was an audition that can the Rockies have a stable catcher and a stable catcher that can handle the pitching staff? Jonathan Lucroy, in just the short amount of time since July, has solidified and started to establish a relationship and rapport with the starting rotation. And that is exactly what has to happen come next season. And it's important that if the pitchers responded with Jonathan Lucroy behind the plate, it's important to keep that intact. And when it is intact, the Colorado Rockies have to make a point of emphasis to re-sign Jonathan Lucroy. He is the perfect bat to be put into Coors Field and rebrand himself as a catcher, as a top flight catcher, but more importantly, it is also the ideal catcher to have a quarterback. Not just an infielder quarterback as your shortstop or second baseman or whatever. You have to have a quarterback of that infield, and Jonathan Lucroy will be that guy. Jonathan Lucroy, for the longest time, when he was with the Brewers in the National League, had been compared to Yadier Molina to be one of the better catchers in the National League. And Jonathan Lucroy can reestablish that image, and he can put himself back into the category of a top two, if not already, he can put himself back into the category as being a top two to top three catcher again in the game of baseball. But there, like I said, there is still quite a bit of some question marks to be had with the Rockies. Will they answer that? I don't know. My guess is as good as yours, literally, when it comes to the Rockies. However, if there's one thing certainly that we cannot question anymore in this offseason, it is Jeff Bridich. Jeff Bridich has, ever since he traded Tulo, he has created a plan, and he has created a succinct plan for the future. And we will see what plan he has in place this offseason in the winter meetings, and who will be a new future Rocky. When we come back, we're going to spend a morning coast-to-coast segment a coast-to-coast segment talking about Derek Carr, him playing on Sunday, maybe playing on Sunday, and what it potentially means for the Raiders. And then we're going to talk about the Broncos and talk about this bye week. Who is a disappointment? Who is a surprise? We have you guys covered on the Cameron Parker Show. Here's another Sayer Benninger.
I will rise. Your light is breaking through the night. I'm breathing in the air of life. Not giving in, this is my fight. Come break me down, every part of me. Nothing can stop me now. Awaken, holy fire, breathe life into my soul. 'Cause we're ready for revival. Come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, nothing can ever match your power. Shout out for victory, it's ours. Oh, break me down, every part of me. Nothing can stop me now. Awaken, holy fire, breathe life into my soul. 'Cause we're ready for revival. Come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, come awaken. Awaken, holy fire, breathe life into my soul. 'Cause we're ready for revival. Come awaken, come awaken. Awaken, holy fire, breathe life into my soul. 'Cause we're ready for revival. Come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, come awaken, love.
Derek Carr had a injury in the Denver Broncos game. It was a traverse, or should we say a fractured back, in a play that involved, I believe it was Adam Gotsis or Derek Wolfe, I can't remember. But it was an injury that potentially was going to sideline him for 2 to 6 weeks. Now, there's a rumor, there's a Twitter rumor, there's a news rumor or whatever, sprinkling out there that Derek Carr might be playing on Sunday. He is apparently lobbying to the Oakland Raiders that he should start. Now, the reasoning that I feel he could play is pretty simple. And that is, he is the only playoff chance that they have. Derek Carr on the field, he is the only playoff chance that they have. Do they have tremendous athletes and wide receivers as Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper? Absolutely, they do. But Derek Carr is the engine that starts it. He's the engine that starts it. He's the guy that handles the ball most on every single play. He is the win or die quarterback that's going to send them to the postseason. Now, ideally, is it right and is it smart for Derek Carr to be thrusted in there? No, it's not. Absolutely, it's not. However, and this will bring me to my next coast-to-coast topic I want to talk about, because in essence it kind of has to deal with it as far as maybe an announcer point of view. And Tony Romo himself, to maybe do a little bit of an appetizer, Tony Romo himself said on the broadcast, or at least felt on the broadcast, that it may potentially have been the same injury that he sustained. And it actually ended up being that way. So, ideally, if you are looking at it for the Raiders' point of view, I would be pretty cautious with this Derek Carr scenario. I get the whole 2 to 6 week scenario. You want to at least be optimistic about it. And I get it from the Derek Carr perspective in the playoffs. And it is early, and it's against the AFC West that you're trying to win a division against. But you have to protect your health first and foremost. If you send yourself back out there with a risk of a fractured back, it will alert a lot of the defensive players. And there could potentially be some pretty low-key hits, but hits that are potential triggers for a more severe fractured back. So is it right, is it ideal for Derek Carr to be sent out there just a week before he fractured his back? I understand it from the player point of view, and especially from the Derek Carr point of view, that you want to be out there with your teammates and you want to win games. But is it right and is it smart? More importantly, is it smart for him to be out there with the chance that he might potentially re-injure his back and re-injure it to a very, very extreme chance that it is potentially broken. It was already fractured, but then it would be broken. So I think it's kind of stupid on his part, to be honest with you. But I understand where he's coming from, because he is their only hope. And as Star Wars: A New Hope said, with Princess Leia, I'm pretty sure that was his teammates all crying, saying, "Help me, Derek Carr. You're our only hope." Who knows? There might have been some Star Wars twang of A New Hope maybe sprinkled in, but we'll see if he plays. But that brings me into this next topic, and this is the topic of Tony Romo as a broadcaster. And it made me think, does it change the way I feel about another broadcaster? Absolutely not, and I'm talking about Alex Rodriguez. However, and especially the postseason, However, Alex Rodriguez is phenomenal of an analyst. He breaks things down. He gets you to start thinking as far as his point of view and what a hitter might potentially be thinking. And same with Tony Romo. The thing that's starting to be phenomenal about Tony Romo in this short amount of time as a broadcaster, and especially a broadcaster in general, and I'm just telling you from an experience, when you have the ability to predict exactly what's going to happen, that is the mark of a tremendous broadcaster. And that's what sets up the good broadcasters up from the great broadcasters. Tony Romo is with Jim Nantz, and he's already starting to see, it may have been extremely tertiary of a moment in the game. I'm going to use an example. It was 4 seconds left in the game against the Denver Broncos in the half, just before they're going to half. And Romo exactly knew the right moment and the right idea that was going to happen in the Jack Del Rio playbook. And that was the simple roll out to the right and just chuck it about 40 yards. And he said it's going to look very odd. And it ended up working out that way. There comes a point in time when you're a broadcaster yourself off to the side, or you're just a simple fan, where you have to appreciate the type of knowledge and the type of the energy that it can bring to a broadcast. It changes the entire complexity of maybe how you view things. And that's why seeing things from the point of view of a quarterback, and particularly Tony Romo, who's experienced a lot of ups and downs in his career, especially late, you can appreciate it more because of what he's been through. And I think that maybe that's why, to me, I appreciate it more with Tony Romo. And now you even go to Alex Rodriguez. We have this image, and I don't believe for a second that he's a Hall of Famer due to what he did on the field. He enhanced his game. He took performance-enhancing drugs. But that's not going to take away from him as a broadcaster. Alex Rodriguez is throwing it out there as and seeing it from the point of view as a hitter. Okay, and then even from a pitcher, because he's seen so many different electrifying pitchers in his career of how far a curveball is going to break, how far is what is the curve of a knuckleball, or what is the right type of moment to throw a pitch, and to throw a fastball or to throw a curveball. It's these types of just the minute details with Tony Romo and Alex Rodriguez that you have to appreciate when it comes to, so for right now, postseason baseball, or for the NFL season and Tony Romo, and as far as when they break it all down, everything from the minute detail is exceptional. And I really do think that there is a lot happening, a lot of positives happening with both Alex Rodriguez and Tony Romo in the booth. Contrast that to Pete Rose. I think Pete Rose is horrendous in the booth. I've taken a lot of classes in the time when I was in school. I don't know if you guys have felt this way in watching Pete Rose, and he was a Hall of Fame player, but he's not going to end up in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, at least when he's alive. But I think that there has to be a case where maybe, and I'm willing to throw a waiver in there that says that, and this is a different topic, but that you throw in maybe a 1-year waiver with Pete Rose that has him on the ballot, and then you see if he ends up getting votes and what the backlash potentially might be. And if not, then he's gone forever. But that's a side story. My point is though, I took a lot of broadcasting classes where the frame of mind, the appearance, more importantly, the appearance of you as a broadcaster has to be, for the most part, exceptional. You have to sit proper, and you have to sit, and you have to be professional. And certainly the comments that Pete Rose might make is pretty spot on, but when you're laying back in your chair, or you have a mic just kind of tilted up to your mouth and just kind of cockeyed and not actually in the right 90-degree angle that it's supposed to be for a microphone, that type of just body language is enough to turn a lot of viewers off. And so while certainly the content may have been okay, just a lack of appearance with Pete Rose as a commentator can set a lot of guys off, and it certainly set me off as far as potential good broadcasters. So that's kind of my side story, coast to coast segment. When we come back, we're going to finish off the Cameron Parker show with the Denver Broncos discussion. It is the bye week. Yes, we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos bye week. Who was the disappointment? Who was the surprise so far in the bye week? And we are going to send it to a very popular song so far in this Cameron Parker show, and that is Veins.
We lift praise to you in heaven, and we raise our hands in adoration. For you are the God who saves, God who reigns, God forever, pouring grace, oh Lord. We need so much more of you. Your love is running through my veins, keeps my heart beating, keeps my heart beating. Jesus, you make me wanna sing, joy is lifting me, grace has set me free. Your love is running through my veins, keeps my heart beating, keeps my heart beating. Jesus, you make me wanna sing, joy is lifting me, grace has set me free. Chains have fallen off our feet, so we dance before our God and King. For you are the God who saves, God who reigns, God forever, pouring grace, oh Lord. We need so much more of you. 'Cause your love is running through my veins, keeps my heart beating, keeps my heart beating. Jesus, you make me wanna sing, joy is lifting me, grace has set me free. Your love is running through my veins, keeps my heart beating, keeps my heart beating. Jesus, you make me wanna sing, joy is lifting me, grace has set me free. Are shaking, your love is unending. I'm on the rock, I will not be shaken. Jesus, your love unfailing. So giving praise till the walls are shaking. Your love is unending. I'm on the rock, I will not be shaken. Jesus, your love unfailing. Your love is running through my veins, keeps my heart beating, keeps my heart beating. Your love is running through my veins, keeps my heart beating, keeps my heart beating. Jesus, you make me wanna sing. Joy has lifted me, grace has set me free. Your love is running through my veins. Oh, Jesus, you make me wanna sing. Joy has lifted me, grace has set me free.
The Denver Broncos sit 3-1 right now on the campaign, and they sit 3-1 heading into the season. Now, certainly it's going to be interesting to see how the Denver Broncos respond out of the bye week. And I brought this up at the beginning part of the show. Is having a very early bye week a bad thing as far as the chemistry with the team? And really, as long as the team's practicing, the team is keeping the same mentality, well, then you're going to be looking at a team that still has the same chip on their shoulder. And the area that you have to be extremely impressed with the Denver Broncos as far as the biggest surprise really is the run defense. And it's really the surprise of this entire season. The ground control of the defensive line is impressive because in just these 4 games, they've been able to shut down 4 Pro Bowlers. And it's how they've been able to do it. And even as a defense as a whole, the team has not even allowed a first quarter touchdown. The team and the defense is starting to look and feel kind of like the 2015 team did as far as how they're winning games. It's not pretty. It doesn't look all that good as far as really tight contested ball games, but it's exactly how they won. And they won in 2015. They won off of key turnovers. They haven't exactly had a key pick six or a key turnover. I not necessarily yet, but they are also to the statement of they're also getting maybe just a little bit better offense than 2015. The run game is exceptionally better with Jamal Charles and C.J. Anderson, and now you enter Devontae Booker into the mix. The run blocking is very, very good. However, you get to the pass blocking, and that's probably where you get to your biggest disappointment, and that is Menelik Watson at left tackle and pass blocking. Menelik Watson in run blocking is fine, but then you get to the Menelik Watson in pass blocking, and well, he turns into Swiss cheese. And Swiss cheese is pretty much my analogy for really anything when things aren't going well. So, I think if you're at the Denver Broncos faithful, you have to be incredibly impressed with the fact that the Broncos are 3-0 coming into this bye week. When you think about it, think as far as this season is concerned in the beginning. They are 3-1. They beat the San Diego Chargers. Okay? They beat them what seemed to have been a close to sending it to overtime field goal that ended up missing. Next up, they ended up being manhandled they ended up manhandling the Dallas Cowboys, turning them into cowgirls. 42-17, if I'm not mistaken. Then they had a little bit of a hangover week against the Buffalo Bills. However, with the way things are shaping up and turning out with the Buffalo Bills, it's a much more competitive loss than we made it out to be. So if you're a Denver Broncos fan, I would feel very, very comfortable and very happy that the Denver Broncos are 3-1 heading into the bye week. That's not to change, certainly, with the division is starting to be pretty competitive. But just in general, with the team that you have constructed, and with you having some offensive line issues, particularly on that right side, and you as a team to still be 3-1 is pretty remarkable. And certainly Vance Joseph has put his name into a Coach of the Year candidate just by starting 3-1. So I think ultimately you look at the surprises and the disappointments. You start maybe singling out who's a player disappointment, and that would be probably Menelik Watson at left tackle. I have two, and it's on the defensive side of the ball. And it's part of the front seven. And those two players are actually players that we were hoping to see more from heading into 2017, and we are getting it. And it isn't just that we are getting it, we're actually getting it and then some. And that's Adam Gotsis and Todd Davis. Todd Davis is he's making himself incredibly well known right now in that linebacking core as a phenomenal linebacker just to begin the season. And again, I want to remind people of the defense that they had in 2015 with Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall and Danny Trevathan. It's one of the reasons why the Broncos defense was so phenomenal in 2015. You think back to the years of when Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall were together. We were just praying that Brandon Marshall and Danny Trevathan would be on the same field together. Well, it happened in 2015 that they both ended up being on the same field together, and they played extraordinary linebacking play. Brandon Marshall, with his exceptional coverage and ability to stop the run, same with Brandon Marshall. There seemed to be a lot of just continuity all throughout the lineup and all throughout the team. And you're starting to see that this year. And Todd Davis is starting to add continuity in these first few weeks at the linebacker spot. Making a key stop on fourth down. Able to help and contribute in the run game and hitting the right gaps. And stopping the running back in his tracks right when he basically proving to be a surefire tackler, if you want to use both those words. And now you go to the defensive line with Adam Gotsis. Adam Gotsis was pushed incredibly hard by Bill Collar. And you think about one of the toughest coaches in the NFL business is Bill Collar. He's a blue-collar guy. He's very rough around the edges. He's going to tell it like it mean it, and he's very brutally honest when he tells it to you. And going back into the season, before the season started, Bill Collar said that this is you could read between the lines on it. He's basically hinted that this is a make-or-break season for Adam Gotsis. And Adam Gotsis is playing exceptional football with his strength, physicality in the run game. He's becoming a presence, and he is becoming a huge focal point on that defensive line to go along with another surprise with Domata Peko. Domata Peko really is certainly proving to be the under-the-radar captain this defensive line and defense really needed. when you lose guys like DeMarcus Ware and TJ Ward, you certainly lose a little bit of, certainly play, but you also lose the leadership that they have in the locker room. And getting a guy like Demontepecco, who's incredibly familiar with the coaching style defensively of Vance Joseph, it just seemed like a no-brainer, and that's why I was throwing his name out there right after the Raiders game last season as a potential signee for the Broncos. There was enough connection there with Demontepecco for there to be potential interest in both parties. And it turned out that maybe Demontepecco saw it the same way and said, I'm going to start looking at the Broncos a little harder. And he did, and he ended up signing. And the more impressive part about the Broncos' defensive line, too, is Jared Crick is a huge focal point of the team. And he's out for the year. So this defensive line is playing the best it's ever been without Jared Crick. That's not to say that Jared Crick is not a good football player, but what it's telling you is that think about if Jared Crick comes back next season and the defensive line is still exceptional. It's just one more piece to the puzzle that is going to make the defensive line that much better. Not to mention, the potential plays of putting maybe Shane Ray down in the dirt and have him be used as the defensive end, or maybe even have Shaq Barrett on a design play to just be a sole pass rusher. There's just a lot of opportunity for this front seven and for the ground control to be very, very, very good for years and years to come because they are so young still with Derek Wolfe and Adam Gotsis and now Demontepecco, and then you start to spring in Kyle Pecco, his cousin, I believe. So really, there's a lot of continuity with this Broncos team right now, and you're starting to see it on both the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, the passing attack as far as identity, and just maybe identity itself has to be a little bit better. They have to maybe start coming out and start to find a weakness for every team, and they can't just abandon some of their best players. Against the Buffalo Bills, they ran it 17 times, and then you go into the Oakland Raider game, well, they ran heavily with C.J. Anderson, with some Jamal Charles sprinkled in, and who certainly his play is advocating for more carries. And then you go into the that same week with the Oakland Raiders. Well, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas were infrequently used. So they have to find still that continuity. I still think that that's the bugs of working out with Mike McCoy, which I'm sure they'll be fine. They'll figure that all out. Remember, this is just week 5, so and maybe it did come at the right time as far as retooling the entire offense or to try and get it back on track and to get this team in the right set forward coming out of the bye week. So I would imagine that the offense may have a little bit of some new wrinkles, whether that is Isaiah McKenzie or maybe Jake Butt. We had a little bit of some good news a few days ago. I believe it was actually may have been yesterday, where Jake Butt is eligible to return in 2 weeks, which would put it at probably the end of October, potentially as a potential return for Jake Butt. And we all said before, as far as using tight ends, even there is another maybe advantage that they need to use coming into, coming after the bye week. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded things here on the Cameron Parker Show. Thank you very much for making the Cameron Parker Show part of your guys' evening. We will keep it on the 7 o'clock time slot on Friday. And I hope you guys give it a listen. I realize the MLB playoffs are going on, but this is the Cameron Parker Show, and it's the best sports coverage you'll ever get in the 7 o'clock hour. This is the Cameron Parker Show.